Welcome to the Lou Perez Podcast. My name is Lou Perez. If you want to support the podcast, please head over to the Lou Perez community over at locals.com. thelouperez.locals.com. And I'm very happy to be joined by my next guest because it's the Christmas season. And to be honest, anytime I want to feel happy, I just head over and check out what this man is doing. His name is Michael Malice. Michael, thank you so much for joining me.
I'm also really good at making people unhappy.
I don't catch those ones. I compartmentalize. Anything that you do that makes me unhappy, I'm just like, no, not him.
You, but other people. It's kind of my core competency.
Well, how's that been going? What do you like doing more, making people happy or unhappy?
Oh, that's a good question. I think making people happy is more fun because it's more long lasting. Because when you make people unhappy, it's usually people who are miserable to begin with. Right. So you're not really moving the needle.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to celebrate was my idea of a white pill Christmas.
Okay.
And it's something that I'm looking forward to. But before we get to those celebrations, you've been talking a lot about white pills, and can you explain what white pill is? What is the white pill?
I want to get the quote exactly right. I have all these dopey little quotes, and like I'll say them, and I'll like that's pretty good. And then in the future, I have to go back and read exactly what I wrote because I want it to be consistent. So the definition of the white pill is I'm using "we" to refer to the good guys. It's possible we will lose. It's impossible that we must lose. So the white pill is it's the counter reaction to the black pill. And this black pill is something that came about in the last couple of years ago in internet circles. And it's this premise, and it's pretty prominent in like alt-right circles, that the West is dead, America's done for, drag queen story hour, this is the end of the world, and so on. And everything's bad, and Joe Biden is president. And the white pill is that this is, it is an absurdity to think that the country that took on Hitler and Stalin and, all these other, villains of all time is going to fall down at the feet of, Jack Dorsey and Ilhan Omar. I mean, but that's to be black pilled is to regard them as unstoppable foes.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if I've sort of done my part for making the alt-right think that we're being black-pilled because I'm the son of an immigrant, a wetback. You are an immigrant yourself, yes. Who came over here, and it's sort of like we're maybe part of it is even if the stuff that we're doing that we think is great and positive, they're still looking at it and they're like, nah, not for us, not for our country.
Or I think it's more like you're just prolonging the inevitable.
Right. So what plans do you have for 2021? I know that you've been working on a book for a little while.
Yeah, that's going to be done next year. I did a cartoon with Tom Woods, who some of you might know. He's this very failed podcaster. So that's dropping in January. It's really great. It's 10 episodes. It's the politically incorrect guide. It's based on those books. We did an animated series, kind of like the Ricky Gervais cartoon. And my goal for the show, I had one goal. Which is to get Tom into address as many episodes as possible. And I think he's in address in like half the episodes. So I'm very, very pleased. Like if we do a flashback to Ayn Rand, the vampire novelist, it's Tom, dressed as her. I haven't even seen that footage, but it's going to be really, really fun. So I'm excited about. I have a lot of this Gavin Newsom stuff really did a number on me, and as well as many other people. I have a lot of shows that I was supposed to be on in LA, and that kind of had to be put on hold. But I'm looking forward to that. And I'll spoil something for you because this is a local show. When I'm on Rubin the next time, I'm going to be dressed as the Question, so that's going to be really fun.
As the Question, what is the question?
Comic book character.
I'm
the
not
Question?
No.
Do you know Rorschach from Watchmen?
Yeah.
So there was a series of comic books by a company called Charlton, and DC Comics bought them out. Captain Atom, The Question, a few others, and Alan Moore, a prominent comic book writer, he wanted to basically reboot them and in a dark context. And DC said nah, so he just basically marginally changed the characters. So Captain Atom became Dr. Manhattan, and the Question became Rorschach. But the Question's character is Rorschach, but he just has no face. There's no ink on it or anything. So I've got the whole look planned. It's going to be really excellent. So I'm doing a lot of this cosplay stuff on these shows because no one else is doing it, and it also alienates the people you want to alienate. So it's win-win.
Right. Well, I remember you were cosplaying as well. At least you had the same hairstyle as Tulsi a little while back when we kind of first when I first did your show. Yeah, how's that been? I mean, she's been making a lot of noise, and you've been sort of in her camp. What's that been like?
Yeah, like I met her not that long ago when I was in DC to do some things, and she's like, "I'm going out swinging," and she's not joking around. I mean, she voted, I believe, against the bill, or at least spoke out very heavily. No, I think she voted against it, that stimulus bill. She had that law trying to mandate Title IX be a function of biological sex. And she teamed up with Massey to try to repeal the NSA. So she's not going down without a fight.
To repeal the NSA? Wow.
Yeah, I think that was the bill. Her and Massey teamed up for something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, you did something recently. You threw your pronouns in your bio. Are the pronouns still up, or have you changed them?
Oh no, I'm keeping them. I'm keeping them. He, him.
And what's the response been?
I haven't gotten. It's only been a couple of days, so I haven't gotten the boomer cons to be like pronouns and bio opinion discarded. Mm-hmm. But it's a very good. I realized, and everyone who replied realized exactly what I was doing. It's a very good mechanism to confuse certain people, and also to, as I said earlier, to alienate people that you want to alienate. So it's just it's just something. It's wins across the board.
Yeah. Well, recently there was I guess a study or a paper that was going out, and it was something like an investigation of the growth of right-wing echo chambers on YouTube. And a few friends shared it with me, and I checked it out. And in the back, they have a list of all these different YouTube channels, whether they're far left, center, right, or far right. And all my friends were sharing it with me because on the far right was my old comedy channel, We the Internet TV. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm far right? When the hell did this happen? And it turns out that I wasn't alone. So I was far right. The Joe Rogan Experience was far right. Brett Weinstein was far right. Sam Harris was far right.
And Harris.
Yeah, Sam Harris was far right. Yeah, exactly. So a buddy of mine, Noam Dwarman, who owns a Comedy Cellar, he's like, he's like, you got to make a video or something. You got to respond to this. And he actually put me in touch with someone at the Wall Street Journal. So I wrote something up, and I'm actually waiting for what I wrote, my op-ed, to be published in the Wall Street Journal right now. Because basically, look, I'm a comedian. My job was eliminated in October. I'm trying to make it in comedy, and the idea that someone's out there calling me, saying that I was a part of a far right program, it's like you're just basically telling people, don't work with this guy, don't associate with this guy. And it's so troubling how easy it is for people just to throw that shit out there and not face any backlash or consequences for it.
Yeah, it's a scarlet letter, and they never have to explain or justify anything. But thankfully, that is being decreasingly effective as more and more. The quintessential example was New York Times had that article, A1 above the fold, which is the prime spot for real estate New York Times articles, about some kid who was in West Virginia, I believe, and he went down this very dangerous rabbit hole on YouTube. And one day he's watching Ben Shapiro, and then a few months later he's watching like Nazi stuff, and then it ends with him being like, "No, I don't like this Nazi stuff." And it's like, so wait. So the problem is he like started like sitting on his ass, and like YouTube's algorithm just feeds him stuff, and he goes, "I don't like this. I want to go back to like something that's a semblance of a sane discourse." And apparently this is literally front page news for them. So increasingly these tactics that they use, like what you're saying, because now what they could do from any article, say Lou Perez, who has been described as far right, and they have a link. So they're sourcing it, and no one's going to follow the link and be like, wait a minute, why is he on the same list as like Ben Shapiro as far right, whatever. Right. But this is a technique that they use. But the only solution, in my opinion, is to kind of, kind of ideologically self-segregate and realize that everything that they write is a lie, and it's just often obscenely so.
Hmm. Yeah, over the past few years, trying to do comedy and doing a type of comedy, political comedy, was sort of like equal opportunity offender. I always found myself like, look, I'm ready to make fun of both sides, but that's not necessarily the case with the people I would say on the other side, in particular the left, where it's like I don't see a lot of self-reflection or self-deprecation on that end when it comes to making fun of their own politicians, their own policies, or anything like that. And it's sort of like here I am trying to do, I guess, like the heavy lifting of both calling out bullshit on the left, and then also when I see bullshit on the right, calling out bullshit on the right.
Yeah, but I mean, this anytime you hear equality, my kind of spidey senses start tingling because it's usually something that's someone's doing something wrong. Because again, if you're calling out bullshit on the right, like neocon wars, I mean, and if you here's the choices. You have like neocon wars, or you have, okay, they're raising the tax rate. I don't think those two things are equal. I think that there's a huge asymmetry. So yeah, it's really kind of, things like this are just completely outrageous. And I don't think they should be treated, equally as someone using the wrong pronouns or something like that.
Yeah, I remember you had an interview with Thaddeus Russell, and something that Thad pointed out.
Talk about failures, yeah.
Something that Thad pointed out in regards to all of sort of the protests that we were seeing around George Floyd and during the pandemic. He's like, there was nobody protesting war. There was no anti-war protesting.
Yeah.
And it's scary, but I feel like we sort of got to the point where, I mean, we hardly heard anything about President Trump's drone strikes, because to admit that there's a problem with Trump's drone strikes would be to admit that there was a problem with Obama's drone strikes.
No, that's not true, because they had a problem with him locking kids in cages that Obama built. They didn't care.
So why didn't we hear about it, you think?
I mean, come on. What is this one-on-one stuff?
Just throwing fucking lobbing balls at you.
I don't know the answer to this.
Why is it? But I don't know. I have hope that we're going to see a stronger anti-war movement. But
I've already started. What's amazing is the second Trump lost, the right heavily pivoted toward we got to make sure there's not more neocon wars. So the slogan is going to be Joe Biden wants to kill your kids. And then if it gets really heated, Joe Biden buried his sons and now he wants to bury yours. So you have to fight dirty, because this isn't, again, school choice or these other things. This is, we are going to be killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people overseas, which is going to lead to blowback here, make us less safe. And if someone sits down and says, I'm going to take your kids, get them on a plane, mail them to the Middle East where they're going to get slaughtered or come back dismembered, I don't think that this is something that is necessarily a target of rational discussion when it's done preemptively and disingenuously. Here's another example. Earlier this year, many people were advocating that we need boots on the ground in Syria, and they all invoked the Holocaust. They said this is another genocide. The Kurds are going to be exterminated. If we're not in there immediately, they're going to be wiped off the face of the earth by December. We're not there. Apparently, the Kurds were exterminated because we don't hear about them anymore. Right? They vanished from the face of the earth. So the fact that they're so shameless in their war propaganda means you can't describe it and respond to them in peaceful, polite terms. They have to be fought. And it also gets to them when you fight dirty, because then it takes away their veneer of respectability, and you realize that these are bloody butchers who should be treated as such.
I remember reading, I think it was in the New York Times. Is it Duckworth? She's a congresswoman.
Oh yeah, that's Lex. Yeah, Tammy Duckworth. Yeah.
Yeah, and she wrote an op-ed. I guess she was taking it, sticking it to Donald Trump or something like that about service. And one of the things that she said is that she made this sort of link between the people who fought in the Revolutionary War and the people who fought in the Iraq War. And I was just sort of like, wait a minute, I know there are wars and people died and all that, but the connection on ideological grounds, I'm like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, maybe she lost a piece of her brain when she lost those legs over there. So I mean, these people. Dan Crenshaw is another one. It's really kind of funny because social media has done a wonderful job of making these people look like clowns and assholes. And I know for a fact that Dan Crenshaw, who's this kind of veering neocon congressman for Texas, he's got an eye patch. He lost his eye in service. He's trying to be kind of this cool dad figure, the hip guy on the right. And he's being treated mercilessly online, and he does his own Twitter, and it gets to him. And every time it gets to him, I'm absolutely delighted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we often hear a lot of, I guess, like pro-war, if there's any other way to describe it, pro-war veterans. But it seems like there's so many veterans out there who are anti-war veterans that just seem to be, kind of swept to the side, and we don't hear from them very much.
Yeah, of course, because they don't serve the purposes of the Cathedral, which is promoting this kind of militarist agenda. The corporate press's bloodlust for war cannot be overstated. I mean, this has been going on for over 100 years. Every war, they're beating the war drums, and they'll invoke the most beautiful sentiments like, oh, well, if you don't do this, it means you hate America, and or you want children to be murdered, and all that. They have no shame, and they can't be treated with even the slightest modicum of respect accordingly.
The first time I heard about the Cathedral, it was from you. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that entails?
Sure. Basically, the Cathedral is what sets and allows the parameters of acceptable discourse by, selective editing and how news is presented. It starts with the universities. It's promulgated through the media and entertainment, and is implemented into law by the state. Where conservatives got it very wrong for a very long time, they were fighting the battle in Washington, and now there's an increasing realization among people of right and left who are anti-war and anti this kind of corporate BS, that this starts much earlier and is much more pernicious. Nancy Pelosi does not hate you anywhere near as much as the New York Times editorial board, let alone the Harvard law faculty.
I think one of the great things to come out of the Trump administration, and I'm already going to get flack for just saying anything great came out of it, but I think he was a great crucible for us to really show the impurities of the institutions and to just show them for what they are. And I don't think the skepticism of those institutions dies when on January 20th when Biden takes over. I think we're too far gone now, and too many people are in the know.
They really, I've made this analogy before. It's like Hillary in 2008. Hillary in 2008, when she's running for Democratic nomination, it was a given she was going to be the nominee in her campaign's mind. They didn't think past New Hampshire, right? She loses Iowa to Obama. It comes in third. Iowa was a very white state. So the fact that Obama as a minority candidate could beat her and beat her there was a huge example of the validity of his campaign in terms of being able to attract votes. She takes New Hampshire. But then after that, there's all these states where there's overwhelming African-American populations, and the delegates were being voted proportionally. So when she would win, it would be like 52-48. But when he would win, it would be like 70-30. And it looked very quickly like she's screwed, because you play out the math, like where are you going to be able to take this guy on? And they hadn't thought that far ahead, and she got her, butt handed to her. They really thought, the corporate press, that Trump was the source of all this, that we beat Trump, he goes away, everything goes back to normal, and here's the deal we'll do with you guys, you deplorables. We'll just pretend the last 4 years were you having a temper tantrum. There won't be repercussions for your transgressions, and now we're going to go back to normal as the way things ought to be. And what they don't realize is that Trump wasn't the source of all this, he was the dam. And now that they've broken the dam, things have rapidly and profoundly radicalized on the right. Already articles are starting to trickle out as they're realizing this is also in the Atlantic and some other venues about, holy crap, this has gotten insane how quickly the right has just been repudiating all of us. And it's going to get much, much worse, because if they think Joe Biden is the one who's going to be able to handle this, when people like Paul Ryan, John Boehner, they all ran out of Washington because we can't deal with the space. These people are crazy. And that was, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, when the base was a lot more sane and a lot more calm. So they're going to be in for a world of hurt, because I forgot who was, they wrote an article, but how do you deal how do you govern when you have a significant percentage of the population who is very committed to the absolute burning down, destruction of the system, and will use any mechanism in their power to do so, and will revel in it? What do you do? And I don't know. I like, if I had to sit down and advise Joe Biden how to manage this, I don't know what I would tell him.
Yeah, it's sort of like what happens during the first 100 days, because when I see politicians talking about putting lists together of people, that's some really scary shit. But it's scary for them too when you're talking about over 70 million people who voted against the guy. You want to put 70 million people on a fucking list.
Yeah, and I have if you go to governors-to-gitmo.com, I have t-shirts where I think these governors should be sent to Gitmo. And I think what's really great is that we're seeing for the first time conservatives turning on the police, because they are realizing they were harder on people who were owning businesses than on those who are burning down businesses. And it's become very indefensible how they behave during these quarantines and lockdowns. They're not on the side of the people. It's transparently obvious, as 2020 demonstrated. And then they have a whole other situation when you lose the authority of the state over the population, over the people who are motivated. The masses are never going to care one way or another. They're going to be just following along. That's another huge mess to deal with. There was I think it was in Vermont recently, or New Hampshire, one of these mayors was the target of a citizen's arrest. I don't think this is going to get easier if they are trying to make things more quarantine or more lockdown. I think it's going to escalate, and I want it to escalate. These people need to have personal consequences for their depravity.
And during the lockdowns, I guess they're ongoing. It was wild to see. I thought basically all the anarchists I follow, like yourself, like Tom Woods, like Dave Smith, you guys had the most sane perspective on this whole thing. And I was telling people, I'm like, my anarchist friends are principled as fuck. And when shit was really hitting the fan, you need those type of people like yourself to be parsing out and showing what's really going on. I mean, we're both in New York.
Yeah.
What Cuomo and de Blasio are doing is it's horrific and just destroying so many livelihoods. You mentioned on a few of your podcasts, Ice and Vice, which for people who don't know, Ice and Vice is an incredible ice cream makers. I think they're one of the best that I've ever had. And because of this lockdown, they're gone. They're done.
We have seen a systemic attack on small business via to the benefit of corporate America and huge business in this country, the likes that we should have never seen before. They were stood there cheering on the burning down of small businesses by supporting the rioting. And then they're cheering on the lockdowns. Amazon's doing fine. Target's doing fine. Walmart's doing fine. All these small companies, all these waiters and waitresses, bartenders, they're not doing so fine. I had a poll on my Twitter, which I don't think is really tongue-in-cheek. And I said, who's done more long-term damage to New York, Mohammed Atta or de Blasio? Mm-hmm. And de Blasio won 9-1, and that is the correct response. And they're doing it shamelessly and brazenly. Gyms were closed for months. Is there any population that is more concerned with their health than people who go to a health club? And what was amazing at one point is Cuomo had said, all right, gyms are clear to open. And de Blasio said, well, it's going to be another 2 weeks because we don't have enough inspectors and our priority is opening the schools. Okay, have some kind of private licensing for inspectors, have the gym pay a fee, and you could open up. These are people out of work, people have, need to exercise, so on and so forth. So the fact that he feels so comfortable telling an entire segment of the economy, you're going to 2 more weeks is unconscionable. And I don't know where this is going, but as an anarchist, it's going in a direction I like, because, and I'm very disgusted with our country, because if you have France and Canada who are fighting the cops who are enforcing these lockdowns, what the hell has happened to America? That we're third on this list? That's despicable.
Our friend Carol Markowitz has been doing an amazing job over at the Post, just covering the Kafka-esque rules that have been put down on restaurants. And it's I asked this question, and I wanted, I never got an answer to it. For these people who want to close down restaurants, okay, which restaurant is responsible for the most COVID cases? Like, tell me, you should have that. You should have that list,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you should have that information if you're going to be, closing things down. Just thinking about the amount of restaurants that just spend upwards of thousands and thousands of dollars to comply with these bullshit regulations to create outdoor dining, and now they're done.
One of the things that Giuliani did to turn around New York is he made it more of a tourist spot. He cleaned up Times Square. All the hookers and porn stores went away. He made it safer. And what makes New York special isn't Target. It isn't movie theaters. It is these small, unique businesses, restaurants, boutiques that you can't find anywhere else. When you remove all of those, that tourist money pays for those social programs these people like. You are going to have a kind of death spiral. If you're making all these buildings where no one's paying rent anymore, because if I could have my employees working from home, why am I paying these exorbitant rents? I don't see how you're going to turn the ship around, and I don't think they care.
Yeah. Yeah, on the rent side as well, there's calls to cancel rent, but nobody's canceling property taxes.
Yeah,
it's just this idea that the immigrant woman who owns a two-family in Queens, I don't know, she has deep enough pockets where if her tenants aren't paying, she'll be fine.
Yeah,
and
if not, that's her problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's her problem. I had a subscriber on Locals had this question for you, and it's
oh God, I got to take questions from the plebs for free.
Just this one, and the others are going to have
you
to pay
asked
for
me in
it.
advance, and I said no.
I'm going to guilt you. This is my whole. This is all way just to guilt you.
I feel guilt.
Let's see. In your book, The New Right, you
Yep.
talk about the left and their need to signal their mental health issues. Has it gotten worse during this last election process?
No, I think it hasn't gotten as bad. What they're talking about is there were all these talks about Trump gaslighting us and blah, blah, blah. And this was, I think, a big thing around 2018, 2017. And it's like, wait, if you're saying that Trump's gaslighting you, you're saying that he's making you feel crazy. And it's like, well, maybe it's not him. And maybe it's not just a feeling. And if you're giving whoever's in the White House that amount of power over your mental health, it's not about them. Mm-hmm. It's about something in your mind that has to have this kind of weird connection to a person who does not know that you exist. I think that's decreased. I think mental health issue, you know why? It just clicked. Mental health is not a thing in 2020, because if their mental health was a thing in 2020, then these governors, who, as I said earlier, should be in Gitmo, would have more accountability for the sustained assault on mental health that we've seen in 2020, which is, in many places, solitary confinement is viewed as torture. Human beings are social animals. You keep them isolated. It's very known to have deleterious consequences. They decided to put everyone in solitary confinement, and like suicide rates, depression, all these things went through the roof. They don't really talk about it because it's like, well, what are you going to do? Not have suicidal ideation? So mental health has been swept under the rug in 2020, and that's why.
Yeah, I tweeted out a little while back, if Trump broke you, Biden can't fix you.
Yeah.
There's just no
100%. He can't fix it. He can't even fix his own diapers. I'm very much looking forward to. Here's the thing: no matter who the president is, if you have a 51-49 Senate majority and 220 to like 220 to 215 House majority, and you're screwed. How are you possibly going to be able to govern? It's almost literally impossible in the best situation. So it's going to be beautiful, beautiful carnage. And here's what people don't appreciate. I really hate this cynical, lazy, dumb thinking like, oh, nothing's going to change. Everything's the same all the time. It's like, okay, I get it. You're too cool for school. Listen to The Cure. Go write in your diary in your purple ink. For the first time, you're going to have Trump on Twitter, or maybe he's going to go to Parler if they ban him from Twitter. I don't think they will. He's going to be tweeting the whole time, holding those Republican politicians accountable. And he's going to be the voice of the crazy base. That is an unprecedented situation. George W. Bush kept his mouth shut during the Obama years. Obama kept his mouth shut largely during the Trump years, only in the last year. But even so, he was pretty kind of quiet about it. He wasn't, front and center every day. Trump sucks, Trump sucks, Trump sucks. Hillary was doing that much more than Obama did. President Trump is not going to, I don't think he's going to vanish and go away. I think he's going to be very ruthless, and that is really going to force a lot of these Republican politicians, some on a marginal level, to have some modicum of backbone. And that's really going to be bad for the Democrats.
Yeah. And what do we do? I mean, we're in New York. I'm actually looking to move out of New York to try to get a house because of the growing family and all that.
Where to?
Jersey, right next door, right next door. But I'm just wondering what effect will federal politics have on our state, at the current time.
I mean, I don't know. It seems like no matter what happens on the federal level, the governor and the mayor are certainly doing more than their part to, completely destroy the city. The thing is, like, I'd be fine to move, which is something that I never thought I'd consider, but I don't know where to go. Like, there's no real place to go. Like I said on Twitter not that long ago, I'm like in my 60s, and for the first time in my life, I want to just go to a club and listen to music till 4 a.m, like loud, crappy music. And there's nowhere in America I could do that, and I can't leave America. So it's like if I leave, like I went to Austin not that long ago, but it was a ghost town also. So my friends moved there. Now it's opening up a bit, but I mean, this Austin is a very pale shadow compared to New York.
Yeah, you read Governor Cuomo's book on his.
Well, I got paid $1,000 to do it. So,
well, let's be clear. You got paid $1,000 to read Cuomo's book. What'd you think of it?
Well, it's in the form of a journal, so it's not what
really?
people think. Yeah, like it says lessons from the pandemic. It's like, this is what I did every day. So it's interesting in a sense of a time capsule. It's perfectly readable, but there's not even an attempt to present lessons. It's more like, okay, we did this. This flared up this day. Here's who I called, and these are the accommodations we made. So it's like a blog.
Yeah. Can you imagine if Trump put out a book about how he's handling the pandemic, what he was doing every day, what the response would be to that?
Well, I think, yes, of course, we don't have to imagine it. We know.
We know exactly.
We're told that. And it's just really funny because they're like, 300,000 people died. And you ask someone, I go, okay, how many people would be dead if Hillary Clinton had been president? And there's never an answer.
Yeah.
So it's insane.
I'm just wondering if there's a chapter on cheesecake. So he had that line about, it's like people who complain about gaining weight, you ate the cheesecake. Did you hear that when Cuomo said that? Yeah, comparing it to, he was talking about people who were stricken with COVID, not wearing masks and that sort of thing, comparing to, well, you ate the cheesecake, you got fat.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's great stuff.
Fantastic stuff. There's been a lot of talk about Ross possibly getting a clemency. Do you think we're going to be close to that?
I think someone just needs to make the case to Trump that this would really spite like the deep state, because I think that's his big motivation. The big three from the right are Assange, Snowden, not from the right. I'm sorry. It's not even the right at all. It's the big three from people who are skeptical of the kind of media government apparatus are Assange, Edward Snowden, and Ross Ulbricht. I think it's pretty likely that those will happen, at the very least, because they keep talking about it. I think he wants to go out, use whatever power he has. I think Assange is probably the most likely of those three. There was just a letter sent, urging him to do that. I was a signatory to that. I don't think it's unlikely, and I think it would be pretty awesome if that happened for all three of them.
Yeah, I performed up at the New State Project and a benefit for Ross, and so before me, Pete Quinones went up and gave this just beautiful impassioned speech, not a dry eye in the audience, and then after that, I have to get up there and do stand-up comedy, which is I'm like, can I go first? I mean, had I known what the lineup was going to be, I maybe wanted to go first. So I might be a little biased as far as wanting Ross to be free, because I know Lynn in particular, but I do think it would be such a great fuck you for Trump, because this happened under Chuck Schumer's watch. He an enemy, I guess one of Trump's enemies is Preet Bahana. Is that how?
Yeah, one of those. How you pronounce it? Yeah.
Yeah. He he oversaw this. So yeah, I think as a parting, F you, I think it would be a good move on his part.
Oh, absolutely. And that is his big motivation for a lot of these things.
At the beginning of the year, I think back in February, we got to do some road work together, which was fun. I was promoting a mini documentary called 5 Reasons Why We Need Sweden's Democratic Socialism or something like that. And we hit up Phoenix and we hit up Dallas. And this is the first time we had spent like time together, and I got to share my birthday with you this year. So when I turned 38, I had Michael Malice on at my birthday party. So that was fun.
I promise you're not going to see 39. So we'll see.
Oh, thank you.
That was my birthday wish for you.
Oh, thank you. You're not supposed to tell me. You blew out my candle and took my fucking wish.
Oh, there are other even more horrible wishes.
There are other ways. But I think one of my favorite things that happened. So there was you had offered me a birthday gift, a birthday present of something I'd never heard of called.
Oh no, we're not going down this road. No.
No.
But we will tell this other story.
Okay, tell the other story.
At your birthday dinner, we went to this restaurant. These tacos. Mm-hmm. No, it wasn't the birthday dinner. I think it was just after one of these events. And the waiter came, and I'm a Russian. Russians don't drink ice with their water. And the waiter came out and he said, my glass was the only one that didn't have ice in it. There were 7 of us at the table. And I said to him, why didn't you give me ice? And he literally looked at me and he said, I don't know. And and I took a photograph of it, and it was such a great Twin Peaks moment that I still think about that fairly often.
Out of everything that happened, that I had no idea that happened.
Well, it was one of those. I think the thing is, I talk a lot about magic being real. Mm-hmm. So I think little moments like this, where, like, if he had said, "Oh, you said no ice," like, and I just somehow had a Biden, stroke and just forgot about it, and I knew I hadn't because he didn't ask us if we wanted water, and the fact that he had no explanation was really kind of something.
Well, you were on like a pretty strict, I don't know if you would call it a diet or a regimen.
Regimen, yeah.
Yeah. Are you still keeping with it?
That was for a project, and I was all ready to go in March, and then COVID hit. So now I have to spend all this time getting back to that point.
Because one of the nights we hung out, and you're like, let's go to my favorite burger spot. I want to go to my favorite burger spot, and Whataburger. I was like, yeah, cool. Let's go. So we take an Uber over to this Whataburger, and I go and anytime that I'm going to a new burger spot, I indulge. So I got like 2 really big sandwiches, and then I wait for you to order, and you're like, no, I'm not ordering. I'm on my regimen.
Well, so you were hungry, and I knew it'd be good.
Yeah, I was hungry. Yeah, okay, I wasn't that hungry, but then I sit down.
You sure, fatty? You had 2 burgers.
No, this is the beard, man. This isn't fat.
You had the cheesecake, Lou.
You had the cheesecake. So I take over my tray of food, feeling like a fat kid, and you sit right across from me, and you watch me eat like you're a feeder, like I'm a fat pig, and there's like sort of some weird fetish element to it. You watch me eat this thing.
This is what you looked like to me.
Come on, you just had that handy?
Yeah, because when I was doing my review of Kamala Harris's book.
Ah.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, and then I ask you, like, oh, you sure you don't want anything? And you're like, no, this is
I also have a monocle.
This is you were saying that, no, this is me showing discipline.
Yeah.
All that. So it's you showing discipline, right? You having a regimen, and me being just like a fat pig, getting closer to my birthday and closer
Not
to
like a fat pig, as a fat pig.
As a fat pig, getting closer to my 38th birthday, feeling like shit away from home.
38 years, 38-inch waistline. It's just the math.
Oh no, I can't do that, man. I couldn't let myself go like that. But that's when you hang out with Michael Malice, you're gonna have stuff like that. People aren't gonna give him ice.
I'm on a bulk. Now I'm on 3,600 calories a day. It's not fun. I have to eat Subway. It's disgusting.
Are you like powerlifting? Is that what's happening?
Kind of thing, yeah. And like, it's not easy eating like an American. I gotta tell you, like, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm. What What are you doing a lot of? You doing deadlifts, squats?
Yeah, I have a whole. I've got a whole crew of people helping me. It's like Steve. It's like the $6 million man. Like it takes a lot of really smart, really talented people to get me, who's a complete mess, to make any progress in any direction.
What's the goal? Do you have numbers in mind?
No, it's this project I was working on. I'll tell you about it.
Okay.
Off the air, just to drive the fans crazy.
Right. And
I'll email you right now. This is what really bothers them. When you email someone while you're talking to them, they don't know.
Oh shit.
Right.
He's just going to send me a picture of me looking like a pig. That's it. That's
oink.
Oink.
There, I just sent it.
Thank you. Now let's see if my computer crashes. It hasn't come yet.
Okay.
This is really good Zoom for everybody. Just watching. I'm
telling you because it drives them crazy.
And so I'm new to the locals community. You've been on it a few months longer than I have. What attracted you to it?
I was promised no minorities. So that was, then you came along, Ricky Ricardo, and you ruined the whole neighborhood.
Well, dude, people can have access to my shit for half the price of yours. So I'm going to undercut you, man. I'm going to undercut you. $250, sure. Let's go for it.
But mine's $5. How much is yours? It's $250.
It's $5 too. It's not. I got to change the product. It's not selling too well.
Got to fit another sombrero on.
Yeah.
No, I was the third one. Dave Rubin was first. It's his platform. Bridget Fetisi, who we both adore, I'm sure was second. I was third. I like it a lot because I use it as an alternative to Patreon and Facebook. Mm-hmm. So my community, and this is what I would encourage you to do with yours, is a great place for people to like post what they used to post on Facebook, because you're going to be surrounded by like-minded people who aren't going to give you attitude, who aren't going to get their dander in a huff, and you're not going to have these stupid arguments. You could actually have discussions about issues because you're operating within the same rough framework.
Yeah. I haven't pulled the plug completely on Facebook, but I think eventually I'm just gonna have to do it and just tell people to come over here.
And here's the thing with Facebook, and this has nothing to do with politics or anything. I want to be able to see everyone's updates in reverse chronological order. No algorithm is going to be able to match what my mind wants correctly.
Right.
I mean, if there's someone I haven't interacted with in 5 years, maybe I'm like, oh, I'm wondering what this person's been up to. I haven't heard from them. I don't have that option unless I go to their page. So it's completely outrageous that the functionality that I want is not an option for me. So why am I using this product?
Yeah, and I have fans of mine where I don't hear from them for a while, and then they'll post something like, "I'm back from Facebook jail," and it's like, man, the idea of just having to deal with that bullshit.
And the thing with locals, obviously, since I'm buddies with Ruben, like if there's an issue, I'll get a phone call and we'll have a discussion. I'm not gonna have to wake up like Patreon and everything's destroyed.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and now I think. Was it JP Sears, the comedian, is having an issue with Facebook. He's been trying to post stuff, commenting on COVID.
Yeah,
and the guy's risking losing I think 2.5 million followers. 2.5 million followers, and the idea that it could just be gone like that. I don't think enough people really know what it takes to build up any audience. Forget about one that's 2.5 million strong on a platform.
And right, the fact that there's not even a pretense they're going to give you a reason. Terms of service, okay, or just tell me to delete this post and tell me why. No.
Yeah.
This happened with me. I was on Tim Pool with Alex Jones not that long ago. And there was a part where basically Bill Gates was discussing how, some people are going to have to live and some people are going to have to die, right? Or something like that effect. And Alex said, well, fine, Bill, let's just get the firing squads. Let's just save a lot of time. And the video got pulled, and they said, they had interpreted it as, because he was kind of muttering under his breath, that he meant let's put Bill Gates in front of a firing squad. And what Alex said, that's not what I said. And when you look back at the tape, he clearly says, he's like being sarcastic. Oh, if you're going to kill people, why are you going to bother using a Euroway? Let's just get the firing squads. They agreed that they were wrong, didn't reinstate the video. They're like, oh yeah, you're right.
Wow.
Okay, great. Wow. That's why already there's things like BitChute and all these other things popping up. It's like, why am I'm happy to play by your rules. you're not happy to even have a pretense of telling me what they are.
Yeah. I put a post on Instagram recently. It's funny. It involves Dan Crenshaw. So on Twitter, apparently Dan Crenshaw's account was following a high price escort, right?
Yeah.
And the screen grab was a picture of a blur. Her body, her face was blurred, and then how much she charges by the hour. So I took that and said, here's this escort charging $1,500 an hour, but meanwhile, you got minimum wage escorts just scraping by. This isn't right. Income inequality. And I put it on Instagram, and it was taken down because they viewed it as me promoting a sex act.
Oh my gosh.
And I was thinking about like, let me appeal this thing. And it was such a long process. And there was just all this legalese and all these different steps where I was like, you know what? I imagine I go through this whole thing, and then it puts like a mark on my, on my account, and then maybe they just take away my whole thing, and it's just not worth it. It's not even worth fighting to just keep that one thing up.
Exactly. So it's really kind of absurd, and thankfully, instead of like maybe 5 years ago, people would be stamping their foot and complaining, oh, it's not fair. It's like, okay, we are understanding that it will never be fair or objective, is the word I would use. We're just going to create alternative platforms, so we're not going to engage with this nonsense because these people are not acting in good faith, nor do they wish us well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oftentimes, libertarians will talk about, free association, but then complain that people are getting kicked off these platforms. And it's sort of like, well, this is kind of the world we want, don't we? Where we're able to freely associate with whoever we want.
Yeah, I mean, this is also an example of the market fixing the problem. So instead of this claim that Twitter is the public square, Twitter's prominence is not really that long, and there's no reason that it has to be a given, in the coming years. So my argument was it used to be everyone was on OkCupid or Tinder, and then how many of these dating apps are there? And then dozens. So there's no reason everyone has to be centralized in the same way that if you said, well, everyone has to be watching CBS News, it's like, you sound like a crazy person.
Yeah. When I was single, what was it, like 7 years ago, I basically made a profile on every single one.
Okay.
And I made a profile on FetLife. Do you know FetLife?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, you're a feeder. You were feeding me, and you want for me to get fat in front of you.
Fatter.
FetLife was interesting because it's all fetish. Obviously it's short for fetish, and my handle, because I took it down, but my handle was Bruce.
Do you mean your love handle?
Yeah, son of a bitch, dude. I gotta do more torque. My love handle on FetLife was Bruce Springsteen.
What?
So that
Why?
so I don't know.
Because you're the boss.
I could, yeah. I could be a dom, yeah, man, yeah. I'm just imagining fucking Bruce Springsteen just dominating Stevie Van Zandt and just like making him like eat off the stage. But I was contacted. I never got any love on that side. I really wasn't that into it. But I got contacted by a couple who were like, "Hey, we're big fans of the E Street Band, man. We should party." And their picture was, just imagine like the most suburban basement imaginable. So there's a pool table, there's a flag for the New York Jets, the football team, and then there's a blonde woman in assless chaps just folded over that with a dude with a ponytail and a whip. And it's like, that's what's happening in the suburbs. Maybe that's why I'm moving. Maybe that's where I gotta.
That does not sound appealing.
Doesn't sound appealing?
No, not at all.
Not at all. It sounds like I was propositioning you. That doesn't. Okay, no, it doesn't sound appealing to me either. Okay.
There's this chubby Mexican in the corner.
Son of a bitch! I'm not Mexican. If I was, there'd be no problem with it. All right? I'm just saying I'm not what. That's not me.
Mira.
Oh man.
I'm not Mexican. I'm a Mexican.
I'm a Mexican.
I'm Mexican.
I said, well. I'm wondering if I should embrace the Latinx thing with you, just to make you call me Latinx.
Well, I mean, I have my pronouns.
You do?
Yeah.
I was saying the definition of Latinx is a Latino who is incapable of seducing your wife. So
no, I think Latinx is a Latino who went to college.
Oh
It's
shit.
such a white people thing. It's a
Yeah.
complete white people thing. Latin people don't use this bull crap. Spanish people are like, what is this?
Yeah.
They don't even know what a chalupa is.
Who doesn't know? Oh yeah. That's a. I don't know what it is either.
It's like a Taco Bell that they made up. It's like a word. It's like, what is this? What is these?
Michael Malice does the worst Mexican fucking accent.
Would it be funnier if I had 60 more pounds on me?
Dude, I'm like $180. All right, man. I know, man. I was closing out the year. This was going to be my white pill Christmas, feeling good about going into 2021. And now you reveal to me, not only am I fat, but also you have a mark on my head that I'm not going to make it to 39 in February. God damn it.
Sorry, I say.
All right, I say I was gonna close this out by saying something positive about you, but well, what I was gonna say is, coming up on the end of the year, it's been a friggin' wild ride, I think, for everybody. And something that I did, I was speaking to a buddy of mine a couple of days ago, and he told me that a mutual friend who I hadn't spoken to in about 3 years, and we actually ended things really poorly, me and this guy. I heard that he too had a baby this year, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna hit him up and see how he's doing. So I hit him up and I congratulate him on having the baby, and I said, you know what, looking back, I really wish I had done things differently, and I really wish the best for you and all that. He wrote back, and it was almost like, man, 3 years it took for me just to do that. Meanwhile, at any moment I could have just I don't know, taken a breath, reevaluated, and then.
Well, you're lucky that he still had his FetLife profile active.
That's right. He was like, I have that pool table ready to spread you on it like you wouldn't believe. But he said, I have to lose 60 pounds. He's like, Michael Malice is right about you. You would be in our top 10, Lou, but you got to drop a few. So, Michael Malice, thank you so much for giving me some of this time. Thank you so much for some of the time you spent with me.
You are welcome.